Hello, David Sayers, and hello, everybody. Welcome, everyone. It is a wonderful Wednesday, and we are about to begin our meeting, like David was saying, and it is an incredibly special program. So we just ask that you have first and last names on, which everybody does so far. Great job. And if you could please mute your sound, that would be great. But I am so excited about today. We are going to have a good, informative session. A lot of work has gone into it. Thank you, David Sayers, and our speakers. I would like to introduce our IREM Georgia president, who is a successful and an accomplished leader with more than 20 years of experience in property management operations. For more than 12 years, he has served in senior leadership roles with several national property management companies. Recently, he has been promoted, get this right for me, Kevin, if I am not, but RPM Division President Kevin Owens. Did I get it?
Got it, Deborah. You got it. Thank you.
Woo! Awesome. He's our two-term president that has taken us to new heights and enjoying the fact that he is our president during the year of our 50th anniversary. Giving you guys Kevin Owens.
Thank you, Deborah. I've said this many times before. I appreciate your introductions. This time, however, you spent a little bit too much time on the 20 plus years in the business. Makes me sound a little bit older than I like to sound, but anyway, thank you very much. And thanks to everybody for joining today. I've got a great meeting planned, and I appreciate all the effort that's gone into it. Certainly there's a lot to cover, and I won't take too much time talking about it. I'll let the experts deal with that. But I did want to welcome you all to the IREM Georgia chapter's third membership meeting for 2021. We are now officially called to order. So let's answer a question. What exactly is IREM? We're an international institute for property managers and asset managers, providing complete knowledge to take on real estate management's most dynamic challenges. That means knowledge prepared for the day-to-day, one-of-a-kind operational challenges, from solving the latest tenant or resident crisis to analyzing market conditions, serving real estate professionals who manage all real estate property types. That's a unique thing about Institute of Real Estate Management. We've been an integral force in the state of Georgia since November the 14th, 1971, which means this is our 50th anniversary year, and we are celebrating a lot, and you'll hear more about that in the next little bit. So how has IREM grown over time? Well, since 2018, IREM Georgia has had a 22% membership growth due to referrals, membership retention, great events like this, and because of all of you really talking IREM Georgia up and making it what it is. So thanks to all of you for doing that. I did want to point out a couple of things and say thanks to a few people. Earlier this morning, IREM Georgia hosted a couple of other events. We had a Connection Corner where talent has an opportunity to meet with companies who might be hiring. Students and professionals interested in connecting were welcome to attend. Any companies with open positions were also encouraged and welcome to attend. This was hosted by Tatiana Dwight with Fogelman Property, so thank you to Tatiana. We also had our industry partner, current and interested vendors were welcome to this orientation, where everyone is able to better understand what IREM is about and what the industry partner program is about, and why it's one of the best in the industry to be involved in. We'll be sending a list of all of our vendor partners by Friday, the 26th, so a week from this coming Friday. We'll be submitting and sending out a list of all of our partners to the group so that you can all see who we're working with and who our partners are. This event was hosted by Jonathan Kern. Thank you very much, Jonathan, with Cortland, and Valerie Knight with Cushman and Wakefield. We also have one more event happening after this lunch meeting and this expert panel. We have a meeting from 1:30 to 2:30 where you can log back in, or you can just stay in this at this link as well. We're hosting a professional membership and educational orientation for real estate professionals who want to learn more about member benefits, about upcoming courses, scholarships maybe if you're interested in education. This interactive presentation will be hosted by Jasmine Sylvester, our own Desborough Westfall, and membership co-chairs and the education committee, Cheryl Brown, Rosemary Ashton, and Leisha Rozier. So thanks to all of you for what you're going to be doing for the rest of the day, even after this meeting as well. I won't talk through the entire calendar we've got for the rest of the year, but I do want to highlight a few things that we've got going on. I will continue to refer everybody to our website. It's a fantastic location, not just to learn about IREM Georgia and IREM in general, which it is, but it has every single event that is coming up for the rest of this year already there. You can find it there. You can even register for many of them already. So let's talk about a couple of things that are coming up. Obviously, we're having our meeting today. In July, we have some education. We have the Finance 402 course, investing in real estate. We have in August, we have IREM district meetings. We have other online interactive courses with the ACOM track. We have a chapter membership voting that begins in August. So please be aware of that and on the lookout for that when we vote for officers for 2022. Later in the year, we have our additional meetings. We have I should have mentioned this. We have our IREM Global Summit in October, and then be on the lookout in November for a very special event that we'll spend a little bit more time talking about later in this meeting, referring to what I mentioned earlier, which is our 50th anniversary. Really, really excited about that. A lot more is happening. I could spend the next 15 minutes simply listing out the events and activities we've got planned this year for the rest of this year. But I don't want to do that. Please go to our website and make sure that you are aware of everything that is going on, including our trade show, which is also happening in August with our vendor partners who work with us every single day. Before I move on, I want to make a special announcement on behalf of the Institute of Real Estate Management and IREM Georgia. We are really delighted to announce that Anna Gronholm was chosen as our 2021 Student of the Year. Anna, I'm looking on the screen. If I haven't seen you yet, if I see you, if I don't see you, give us a big wave, Anna. Let us know you're here. Anna stood out among all the other applicants and really impressed the review committee. As the recipient of the Student of the Year scholarship, Anna will receive a complimentary registration to attend IREM's Global Summit in Las Vegas, Nevada. Gambling dollars are not included. Complimentary airfare, however, is included, complimentary hotel accommodations, and incidentals and meals up to $250. So I guess if you don't eat, perhaps you could have some dollars. But anyway, congratulations, Anna. We're really thrilled for you. I look forward to celebrating you at the Global Summit in Las Vegas. All right, enough of the announcements. Let's get on to some really cool stuff. So I'm really excited about what we've learned and how it makes us better in the future. Everything we do as an organization, as a chapter, is about helping our members and others be better. IREM is dedicated to supporting you, every one of you, through these extraordinary times, including the last year and a half in this pandemic, and as we come out of it. So please understand that what we do for you, including this event today. So let me introduce the co-chairs of the Industry Partner Committee who have a little bit of information for you. I'm pleased to announce and introduce Mr. Jonathan Kern and Miss Valerie Knight. Take it away, folks.
Hey, Kevin, thank you very much. Unfortunately, Valerie had a family emergency, so it'll just be, unfortunately for everybody, it'll just be me today.
Oh, you're more than good enough, Jonathan.
Well, thank you. I'm very pleased to introduce our industry partner sponsors for today's event. Our first one is for all of your flooring needs, your property, your organization. I'd like to introduce Vanessa Cox with Ready Carpet. Vanessa?
Hi, everyone. As Jonathan mentioned, my name is Vanessa Willard Cox, or Vanessa Cox. I just decided to keep the maiden name when I got married, so I got a long one now. I am a regional account director at Ready Carpet. So I oversee the Southeast region, where I develop new relationships and nurture existing relationships with regional and national partners. And here in Atlanta, I don't think they're on the call today, but I wanted to give our awesome team a shout out. I'm supported here in Atlanta by Connie Sumanis. She's a general manager. And the account management team is made up of industry veterans like Greg Culpepper, who was at the golf tournament, David Higgins, Sharon Hilton, Brian Burris, Ken Jolie, and Ellis Wharton. So look out for them. They will be attending other events. So a little bit about Ready Carpet. We were founded in 1981, which makes this our 40th anniversary. So you can think of us as Iram's younger friend, 40 years old this year. We were founded on the unique concept of offering next day install for multifamily. So naturally, next day install, you would imagine that we would focus solely on turns, which is a big part of our business, but we also handle rehab, single family rentals, commercial, and also some new construction projects. So a few other things to know about Ready Carpet is that we have a national footprint, 33 branches stretching from coast to coast. We have a regional and national partnership program, which is the team that I'm on. I can help with that. We focus on excellent customer service to all clients, big and small. We focus on yardage integrity. This is a big deal in flooring. We use a proprietary tool to do precise measurements to help reduce costs and eliminate waste. It's a big deal for us. We have a really easy online ordering tool, and we just launched a new app this week to make it super easy to get in touch with us. And we integrate with your procurement and invoice software tools to make your lives much easier. So please keep Ready Carpet in mind for your next flooring project. And I look forward to getting to know each of you better.
Thank you. Thank you, Vanessa. So everybody, please remember Ready Carpet, and thank you for sponsoring today. Next up, for all of you who may have disasters at your property, got an old buddy of mine, Jerome, I'd like to introduce you to. Jerome.
Thanks, Jonathan. Good afternoon, everybody. Sorry, my background's not as cool as y'all's. I'm sitting in my car waiting for another meeting. It's definitely not as cool as Kevin's. That was an amazing sports wall in your background. But I think it was the Braves.
Jerome.
Was that the Braves? Is that the Falcons or the Braves? What's going on back there?
It's both, and you throw in a little Bulldogs with it as well. So it's got all
the
Georgia sports.
I'm glad you don't have a Julio jersey back there because it's not yours anymore. Who dat? So anyway, I digress. So my name's Jerome McGee. I work for Blue Sky Restoration. I do business development for the Georgia market and Alabama and the Carolinas as well sometimes. So Blue Sky is a full service restoration company. We've been in the industry for 17 years. We are headquartered out of Denver, Colorado. We span the entire country. We like to say that we can touch both coasts, Atlantic and Pacific. We have 34 offices, and at any given time, we're working large disasters and smaller remediation jobs in about 40 different states. So we really specialize in environmental restoration. So the mold, the radon, the COVID cleanings, anything really that damages a building, we like to say we can fix that broken building for you guys. So if you guys have a need for us, we work multifamily, we work commercial properties, we work healthcare. Honestly, we can do anything from a standpoint of just your building needs help. So if you need us, give us a call. Our information is on the website, and I believe I'll be putting a video on there very soon. I gotta work on my presentation skills for that.
Thanks, Jerome. Really appreciate you sponsoring today. And we have one more sponsor, and that is Entrada. I don't see TJ on. Is anybody on from Entrada? Well, Entrada is a great company that can help your organization with all things, and your properties, with all things software platform related. So I'm certainly not the best one to do a intro for TJ, but please, we'll make sure that everyone gets TJ's information. And if you have software operating platform needs for your properties, TJ is a good guy to get in contact with. And with that, those are our sponsors. So Kevin, I'll let you take it back and get us started.
As I unmute myself, thank you very much, Jonathan. Appreciate your help. Maybe we can get TJ to do a quick video for us, and we can share that with everybody, so we can make sure that everybody knows what Entrada does, because he's a great guy and it's a great company for sure. So now let's get on to the good stuff. We have some fun things going on. We also have some interesting giveaways to handle as well. So let's move forward and talk about today's prizes. Valerie is not on yet, right? Deborah, do you want to give us a quick update on prizes and what all that, what it takes to win those?
Yes, sir. I was trying to call TJ, so I just hung up on him. But
Sorry.
No, it's all good. I just want to make sure he's all right. That's all. So we do have a Kate Spade bag. It's a pink one with blue flowers, and it's on the website, irongeorgia.org, but it's valued at $350. Our sponsors are going to be the ones that have helped us with this. I'm partial on it. And then we have a London Fog under seat travel bag, again, to give away. And it's going to be based on a couple of questions at the end. And we just asked that those that had registered in advance be the ones to answer the questions. But definitely Purse Vaults helped us with this, and we are very happy to be able to give away gifts. And thank you very much, sponsors, for taking care of helping us today. And if TJ jumps on, we'll have him at the end. Thank you very much.
That sounds great. Thank you so much, Deborah. All right, let's turn it over and get this program rolling. Drew Williams is on. Drew, take it away and let's get the program started. Or
I can just jump straight in, Kevin. That's totally fine.
That works. Go ahead.
Awesome. Well, hey guys, welcome. We're so glad you're here. We want to welcome you to the IREM Georgia 2021 Mid-Year Economic Update. First and foremost, as a reminder, I want to say thank you again to all of our industry partners who are sponsoring this event. Of course, we have Ready Carpet, Entrada, and Blue Sky. Let's give them one more round of applause, right, for their sponsorship. For those who I don't know, my name is Dave Sayers. I work at Cortland as a Senior Director of Talent Development. That's a long title, I'm sure, but also I have the privilege of being on the IREM Georgia Program Committee and hosting today's session. And guys, wow, what a powerful session we're going to have. So with me today, we have not one, not two, but three economic superstars that are going to share their insight on the economy, how it affects real estate and inside Atlanta, and really what the forecast can look like in their respective areas. So if you're like me, you probably already have out your notepad and your pen and you're ready to take some notes. But before we begin, I do want to take a moment to introduce each one of our panelists and give them a true IREM Georgia welcome by doing a virtual round of applause after I introduce each panelist. So first and foremost, Madeline Harper. Madeline Harper is a research analyst at Yardi Matrix and is responsible for analyzing and interpreting information found in the database and conveying to the clients in the form of presentations, webinars, and premium reports. Ms. Harper also composes editorial pieces for Yardi Matrix, Commercial Property Executives, and Multi-Housing News. She utilizes the Matrix database along with secondary research to delve into analysis of current market conditions happening in multifamily, office, and self-storage asset classes across the country. Let's give a warm IREM Georgia welcome to Madeline Harper. Welcome, Madeline. All right, we also have Christopher Lyon. Christopher, if you want to put your hand up, everybody can see you out there. Christopher Lyon is a senior associate in the Sunbelt Multifamily Advisory Group here in the Atlanta office. His responsibilities including all of the firm's brokerage activities in the Atlanta MSA markets, particularly within the private capital product type. Since joining the firm back in 2015, Christopher has been directly involved in the sale of over 310 multifamily assets totaling over 40,000 units with an aggregate sales volume in excess of $3.5 billion. That's a lot. So Christopher holds also a BBA in finance from the University of Alabama. Let's give a warm IREM Georgia welcome to Christopher Lyon.
Thank you, David.
Thank you. And last but not least, we have Brad Dillman. So Brad, if you want to put your hand up too, let everybody know who you are. So Brad is our chief economist at Cortland, where he develops and operates a market research analytical system that includes a proprietary rent growth projections and sub-market scores. His past experience includes a similar role with a publicly traded home builder. You may have heard of them, called Pulte Group. He also has experience developing credit pricing and stress testing models, secondary market placement, and began his career in quantitative analysis with the CoStar portfolio strategy. He holds a bachelor's degree from the University of Washington and a master's of science from the London School of Economics. He is a holder of the Chartered Alternative Investment Analyst and Financial Risk Manager certifications, and appears frequently in the media in relation to his commentary on the economy and housing. So let's welcome Brad Dillman. Awesome. So again, all three of these panelists have a lot of experience, and I hope you're ready for some insight. And I want to start off with this thought. As we think of 2020 was definitely defined as probably one of the craziest years we've ever had of all time, right? Between COVID and everything else going on. And in the beginning, 2021 left a lot of speculation for folks as they're wondering what's going to happen next. As forecasters for what you do and everything that you work through to understand what models will look like and what themes will look like for 2021, what were those forecast expectations and what were those themes? And I'm going to go to Brad to share a little bit about what his forecast expectations and themes were like moving from 2020 and then going into 2021. So Brad, go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, thank you, David. So going into 2021, I think one of the things that really had jumped out to us was if you look at the 10-year Treasury rate, it's negative in real terms. That's to say that 10-year inflation expectations are higher than where the 10-year Treasury rate is today. Today, it's around 150 basis points. Now, our expectation was going to be that you're going to see a slowdown in long-term inflation expectations and an increase in the 10-year Treasury rate. Now, to be sure, it has gone up a bit, but it's certainly not gone up as high as most people expected. That's one thing that's really hanging out there. We're going to see how that ends up by the end of the year. Now, another one was a continued improvement in the labor market, and that's actually been enhanced. So if we were to look at forecasts from, say, January of this year and compare those to forecasts from April of this year, we basically added on an extra 1 million jobs by year end 2021 than we had going into the year. So that's another positive too. And then lastly, one that is still very much on the mark, and I'm glad to say that we predicted well in advance, is this rebound in rent growth that many areas are experiencing now. And that's something we'll touch on later. But forecast models that were run about a year ago were really showing this tendency of rents to be stagnant to down. Obviously, it depends on different submarkets. But then as the pace of the jobs recovery continued into 2021, that basically 1 year after COVID hit, right? So May 2020, May 2021, that's when we were going to start to see material increases in year-over-year rent growth. That's indeed what we're already seeing. And we'll touch on that in a bit too.
Awesome. Thanks, Brad. It's amazing to see those expectations and the themes moving forward. And I want to find out a little bit more about that. So I'm going to ask Madeline, same question. So thinking about what was forecasted in 2020, how did those things shift? Did they shift for you as you moved into 2021?
Yeah, so like Brad said, at the beginning of 2021, we were projecting rents to continue to increase throughout the year, but they've kind of skyrocketed. Especially in Atlanta, we've seen rents up almost 7% on a year-over-year basis, which is awesome for the Atlanta market. And that's driven by migration into the Atlanta market. So a lot of people moving there and driving up rents.
I think we all love that, the driving up of rents for sure, right? Yeah. And then Chris, how about for yourself? Were there any changes to that theme?
2020 was definitely a down year, but really only during that March to June. And so when we had a lot of deals blowing up, lenders backing out, we really didn't know what to expect. And then the end of 2020, it really started to ramp back up. And we expected 2021 to be, somewhat down from 2019, because 2019 was kind of our best year. And honestly, it's been, I don't know if it's because, the eviction moratorium is expected to be lifted in June, but groups are paying record prices, the lowest cap rates we've seen, I guess, thinking that's coming. So we've actually had the best quarter we've had since being at Cushman. So it's kind of, it's hard to believe, and I don't really know how to understand it, but it's as strong as it's ever been.
which is amazing. And I think we all love it too. And it's interesting. So Madeline, I know we've talked a little bit too about rent growth and rent growth changing at the beginning of the year. Can you share a little bit more about that conversation on rent growth?
Sure. Yeah, at the beginning of 2021, we were forecasting strong rent growth in Atlanta, but it has even outperformed our expectations. So like I said, rents are up almost 7% on a year-over-year basis in Atlanta. Some of the strongest submarkets that we're seeing year to date are Grant Park, or the East Atlanta submarket, West Riverdale, and then Cascade Springs. So as we move through the rest of 2021, we do expect that rent growth to kind of ramp up even further, especially as a lot of people are migrating to Atlanta just due to the lower costs. People are leaving high cost cities like New York and San Francisco and moving to Sunbelt cities like Atlanta. So we definitely expect to see that as the rest of the year progresses.
Awesome. That is great to see all the potential growth happening in the Atlanta market. It's fantastic. But now let's turn our focus towards a little bit towards multifamily. We have a lot of folks on the call that focus on multifamily. So that seems to be a continued trend, right? We talk about rent increases happening, but if you're just take a few moments and describe to everybody what's happening in multifamily, what would you say would be the main drivers that's causing that rental increase? And send that to Brad. So what would be some of the main drivers that would cause the rental increase, Brad?
Yeah, so we've had nationally, right, there's generally been a year of stagnation in rents since COVID. Now, in some areas, obviously this has been very negative, as Madeline said, with out-migration, from coastal markets, in the Northeast, urban core submarkets in particular facing severe declines. I know downtown Boston, for example, had, rent growth at negative 24% at one point. Now, systematically, though, we expect a return of rent growth. And we're seeing this already. Obviously, there's still weakness in parts of the country, but this, in many respects, is just a pricing dynamic. It's not so much a jump in incremental demand. Indeed, the rates of adults living at home has actually appeared to increase over the last year, but rather it's pricing adjusting to the fact that we've been stagnant for a year. That a lot of businesses or large owners like ourselves, we're not pushing rents, for ethical reasons during the COVID time period. As we come out of that, you're not going to see the market adjust. Now, aside from all that, and overall, and what of course is a big driver of multifamily demand is rent growth. But another one that's really fallen under the radar for many folks is the cumulative supply of housing in the country. If we were to go back to the housing bubble, which to me seems like it was yesterday, but maybe some folks don't even recall it, but we actually overbuilt this country immensely when it comes down to the amount of housing units. Took a while to burn all that off. We stimulated housing. We created problems as a result of that stimulus. Long story short, today, at least by my estimate, this country is undersupplied by about 1 million housing units. Obviously, I stand by my estimate. There's folks that have estimates that are a little bit higher than that, and some that are frankly ridiculously higher than that, and that are probably incorrect. But when we talk about another driver of rent growth, we just don't have enough housing in this country. I think, again, 1 million units, we could basically build a new metropolitan area. So that's a big driver too.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Brad. Especially like things that happened through the Great Recession. It's interesting to see how things start to ramp up. And of course, COVID pulls it back a little bit, but then there's explosion. So Madeline, let's talk about that a little bit more. So what do you see when it comes to all the data that you're pulling when it comes to multifamily?
Yeah, I definitely agree with Brad. There's a huge undersupply of housing, especially in these hot markets where a lot of people are migrating to. There's just not enough rental housing. And then another factor is a lot of people continue to be priced out of the single family housing market. So that drives them to continue to be renters. Maybe they'll hold off for a year on buying a house. So that in turn just has them stick in the rental market for another year or two.
Yeah, absolutely. It is amazing to see that influx too. And we're going to talk about single family coming up here in just a little bit. And Chris, I also see from your notes, you felt pretty much in line with what everybody's saying. Is that correct?
Yeah, Brad and Madeline, they nailed it. I mean, housing prices, definitely the growth of Atlanta, just more people coming from, New York and San Francisco. And so, historically, the rents in Atlanta are very low compared to other cities. So I think it's more just catching up.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is interesting because, like, I think you even mentioned, Chris, it's a renter's generation, right? And so those renters, you know, they come in all forms, shapes, sizes, and abilities to pay. So let's drive that a little bit more. So when you think about the investment strategy for really what you focus on, whether it's Class A, B, or C, Brad, when you think about, especially for what, you know, we're working on, how would that look as far as the forecast for the investment strategy when it comes to?
Yeah. So, you know, Cortland's been a beneficiary of dynamics over the last 5 years. You know, if we look at migration data, you know, we know people are moving to cheaper metropolitan areas, but an often underlooked dynamic is that they're actually moving, you know, from more expensive submarkets to cheaper ones, which tend to be on the periphery. If we're to look at a metric like rent growth, and again, I'm speaking of a national index, we've seen, you know, annual rent growth outperform in the suburbs compared to the urban core really for like the last 8 years. Now, this relative outperformance was enhanced as a result of the COVID experience. I remember we had a lot of multifamily supply. It was very concentrated in urban core submarkets, less so in the suburbs. And then at the same time, then with COVID, you of course had people cease to move into the urban core and even move outward in kind of a general suburbanization, which again had been underway, but was very much enhanced by COVID. So if you were to look at suburban rent growth, and Cortland tends to be positioned in suburban submarkets, the relative outperformance of suburban rent growth over the urban core, which in general terms has been contracting, has of course been significant. When we look to the future, we'd expect this to continue. I do expect urban core submarkets to tighten back up. There's been some very big concessions and even outright asking rent declines. But if we look at the number of vacant units in those areas, it's just not enough to shift the overall needle or to really siphon demand, you know, from the suburbs in such a meaningful way that urban core rent growth is likely to outperform. So to summarize the question, suburbs, rural areas continuing to look good for the foreseeable future. The urban cores perhaps catching up a little bit, you know, over the next call it year and a half.
Nice. All right. Thanks, Brad. And then Chris, I think your focus is a little bit different. It's more focused on Class C. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, we say private capital, but it's really private high net worth individuals that, you know, buy these deals instead of, you know, Cortland and funds and stuff like that are buying A class. And so I just focus on really 80s and older in B and C areas.
And what does that look like for you now for B and C?
I mean, it's as strong as it's ever been. And I think a lot of it is, you know, people are leaving the city due to COVID. You know, Atlanta made national news this week with the crime in Buckhead. And so I think that's a lot. People are moving out to Marietta, Smyrna. I have several buddies that just bought houses in Marietta. So there's a lot of investors that are buying up 70s deals in Smyrna, Lawrenceville, Norcross, Northeast Corridor, and, you know, spending $15 a door, transitioning those deals into nice apartments to compete, not necessarily compete with A, but be affordable and also have nice finishes. And people are moving outside of the city, I think, you know, to get that affordable rate while also getting away from just, you know, the COVID city, the crime. And so that's why I think we're seeing a lot of that growth in terms of the setup.
For sure, Chris. It reminds me of a call, though, I did receive from my mom, because I guess it did make the national news. So she was like, "Don't you work in Buckhead?" I'm like, "Leave me alone. I'm 50. I'm okay. I can handle it." Right. Yeah. But there is this shift that seems to happen. And I've heard about it quite a bit, where folks are moving from downtown and midtown and they're migrating out to the suburbs is what I hear. So really, I want to know, how accurate is that, and how would it really affect those downtown and midtown areas if there is a shift? So I'm going to pass that over to Madeline. So again, thinking about downtown to midtown, how people are moving out, how accurate is it, and how will it affect it?
Yeah, I think there definitely are those people who are moving from midtown out to the suburbs, but it's people who were probably going to make that move anyway within the next few years, and COVID maybe just accelerated that trend a little bit for them. As far as Midtown goes, there are always going to be that kind of next wave of college graduates that want to come into Atlanta and live right in the city. So I think as we move through 2021, we will see rents start to recover in Midtown as people graduate and start to move in there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there'll always be some migration for sure. And then Brad, how do you think that affects too for things that we have going on for A and B?
Yeah, the migration out of the urban core to the suburbs.
Yeah.
I think it's continued. So if we think about it, we have this pressure that if we were to go back 7 years, 8 years, you had affordability pressures really as a result of monetary policy, artificially stimulating home prices in an oversupplied market with a depression create labor economy. Create affordability pressures. This is in 2012 and 2013, which migrated from owned housing and into for rent, the golden age of rent growth back in 2014 and 2015. Now that process has been very long. You know, historically this will take like a decade for things like this to pan out. But it goes from owned housing into Class A multifamily down to B, down into Chris's space in the Class C, lower market affordable kind of area with those sorts of rent growth pressures. Indeed, if we look at our own submarket selection algorithms, which are going to look at like 15 different metrics, so it's not just rent growth, but they're really picking up on opportunities in like Clayton County, far, west, east, and north Atlanta suburbs as being attractive areas right now in sort of a general risk neutral strategy. That's to say, not specific to value add or more of a core plus, which is something Cortland has been doing more recently. But so if I was to summarize that, what is that continued migration? If it's either people not moving into the urban core, people moving outward, people moving into the suburbs, well, it's going to put that continued pressure moving outward. It's going to go out spatially, and it's going to go down the hierarchy from your owned or upper Class A all the way down to Class C. I'll highlight again, this isn't totally new. We can think back to 2018 and the kind of affordability pressures that were part of broader media narratives and even some of the discussions around rent control back then. Again, all of this is really a reflection of the overall undersupply of housing, which in turn is a direct result of policy actions coming out of the Great Recession.
Awesome. Thanks, Brad. I think you brought up a great point I think we should talk through, because there's certain areas of Atlanta that seem to be hot areas right now. Like this is where people are looking. And what's important here is, as we have folks on this call, whether they're in multifamily or whether they're focusing on single family or whether they're a vendor, they're thinking about how do they work in this area or serve these areas. So overall, what's your thought? Like, what are the markets that are super hot? I know you mentioned a couple of them so far.
So again, it's Clayton County scores very well. These very peripheral suburbs, pretty much in any direction, and then the weakness is all concentrated. It's downtown, midtown, Buckhead, and for us, West Atlanta is looking pretty bad too. And again, this isn't just rent growth. This is a scoring metric across 15 different variables, and it's all relative, to the 600 plus submarkets that we actually track. So they fit in that kind of a framework. But it's interesting to see this dynamic hold, not just in Atlanta, but in different markets too. You have very similar themes in different markets around the country. And that's because they are really, at the end of the day, they're really driven by the same dynamics, which is this long wave affordability pressure that I had just described in my previous comments. Now, looking ahead, we don't see any reason why this would change anytime soon. And the reason for that is that even as markets self-correct and you get urban core supply, this new supply, start to clear, people moving back into the city, these low rents actually even attracting people back in, it's going to tighten back up again. And because we're undersupplied in aggregate, we see immediately that rent growth pressure staying, reverberating outward to the spatial periphery. So there's no reason for us, at least right now, based on what we can see, to think this is going to change anytime soon. That's to say that we would expect continued pressure in the spatial periphery and therefore continued investment opportunities in those areas. Nice.
Thanks, Brad. And then also for you, Chris, as you're focusing on your investment strategy, are there other hot markets in Atlanta that you're looking at?
It's definitely the northeast and northwest corridors, the Marietta, Smyrna, and then up towards Lawrenceville. We're starting to see a lot of growth in Gainesville and in and around Gainesville. I'm selling a deal right now that's a new build deal in Cornelia. I would never think someone would build a deal there in Cornelia and at least up in 2 months. And they're getting about $200 less than what an A-class deal would get in Gainesville. Other guys are building deals in Pendergrass. Literally bought a cattle farm and is building a 400 unit Class A development. So we're seeing a ton of growth in that corridor and the demand's there. And I think a lot of that's just the quality of life. I talked to a few tenants and they're like, yeah, we just want to get out of the city, be closer to the mountains, and just have a more affordable rent.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure. I'm excited about Marietta because that's where I live. So I'll tell you that, but that's awesome. Yeah.
Marietta is probably the number one place people want to buy C apartments or just any sort of value add.
Which actually brings up a great point, Chris, to my next question, because we think of things that are hot, and obviously the single family area is super hot right now. Like I speak to my neighbors, one's already sold their house and another one's thinking about putting their house on the market. I guess the big question I have for you guys is what's driving that first? Like what's making people say like, oh, I'm going to sell my house at 30% higher than probably what it's worth. So I want to find out first from Madeline, what do you think is driving the single family market right now?
Yeah, the single family rental or housing market?
We can go with rentals if you want to talk through rentals. And then
Sure.
I do want to find out about the market too.
Yeah. So the single family rental market has been around for a while and really took off right after the Great Recession. And now just with COVID and people wanting more space, it's kind of taken off even more. There's a lot of institutional investors that are really getting involved in the space now, more and more every day. Yardi Matrix just started tracking single family rentals, specifically in the build to rent sector. And we've seen rents up across the board in all markets that we track, with no signs of slowing down anytime soon. And I think it's just driven by people wanting more space coming out of the pandemic, but don't quite have the down payment to buy a house, or are getting, the market's super competitive. So there's bidding wars and they just aren't able to secure that single family house. So they decide to go and rent a single family house.
Yeah, to have something, right? For sure.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Absolutely. And then, so Brad, what are your thoughts too on single family overall? Why are the housing prices going up so quickly like this?
Yeah, well, I think first and foremost, it has to do with mortgage rates. And really, this is the mortgage rates that are built off of a 10-year treasury rate that's been negative in real terms, since early 2020. We've seen this only one other time, and that was back in 22. Well, it was announced in late 2011, the policy that was encouraging it, but basically all of 2012, we saw this until early 2013. And we had a similar dynamic. If you take a look at something like the Case-Shiller National Home Price Index, and just look at the year-over-year growth in that, we have a new post-Great Recession high in year-over-year growth in home prices. It's very clearly driven in large part by mortgage rate conditions, which has been enhanced now by actually, if we want to talk about what could actually make this worse, we have actually seen an increase in the mortgage level for a conforming mortgage, which just further allows people to bid the price of houses, to the point now that you see this ridiculous divergence between home builder confidence, which is near a record high, and home buyer confidence, which is near a record low. Something that's not sustainable, and it'll be interesting to see how it pans out. Now, of course, and as Madeline's noted, there's an undersupply, so I don't think we have anything like a decline in home prices in the cards without a really material disruption related to the labor market. It's not even backed by, say, government stimulus, which has been the case over the last year. So I don't think we're going to see falling home prices, but we will potentially be in a situation where we're going to see the rate of home price growth slow dramatically at some point over the next year. Now, when it comes down to general demand in that space, when it comes down to single family rental, purpose-built single family rental has been an obvious opportunity for about the last 5 or 6 years, really due to the aging of the millennial demographic, distortions in home prices related to incomes and savings for a down payment, which has been an issue for quite some time. We're really only seeing, the single family builders get into this, in the last 2 years. And I think with COVID, we've now seen a lot of people recognize the opportunity, given that has increased suburbanization and the demand for more space. I do think that over time, we're going to see that space migrate more towards a traditional multifamily kind of segment. That's to say that, it's going to, when people pencil deals, they're very quickly going to realize they need to cram in more density. And that in effect, what they're doing is offering not a single family lifestyle, but rather a multi-bedroom heavy focused community. And that's to say, really what's going to amount to being a family oriented renter segment in all likelihood as we look at the aging millennial generation. Again, I'd argue that's too little or too late for most millennials, but clearly the demand that is being experienced in that space is somehow related to this aging demographic as well, this aging millennial demographic.
Nice. Thanks, Brad. And Madeline, do you see that also transforming for rentals? Like over the next year, do you see a big shift in that?
A shift in single family rentals?
Yeah. Will we have an uptick in rental amounts?
Oh, yep, for sure. Yeah, like I said, I mean, there are a lot of people who want to move to the suburbs, want more space, and just aren't able to afford a single family house to purchase. So their next best option is to rent.
Mm-hmm. Which is great, because I think you had mentioned nationally rents are up to, if I have it right, what was the percent, like 7%?
Yep, 7% nationally. And we've seen certain markets where single family rental build to rent housing rents are up in the double digits in some markets, especially in places like Texas, where there's a huge amount of build to rent housing there.
Nice. So multifamily going strong, single family rental and single family overall seems to be going strong. Let's talk about that other part, commercial space and retail. So, Atlanta continues to attract some major new companies. Microsoft has announced that they're coming in, Google and MailChimp. So we want to know what makes Atlanta that attractive market for businesses like this. And I want to jump to Chris first. So again, when we think of these companies coming in, what's saying we got to come to Atlanta besides the Braves and besides the Falcons?
Well, I'm definitely not an expert on this, but in talking to the A-class guys and land guys, I mean, a lot of it is the price of the dirt. There's a lot of land, and so it's cheaper. And then, obviously Georgia's business friendly. You have the big hub. So, I mean, I would say those three are probably the main drivers.
Okay. And then how about for you, Brad? What do you think? What's driving in Microsoft, Google, and MailChimp?
I think it's basically a more friendly business environment, but also it's partially this percolation of the skill set. So what were much scarcer skill sets in the technology space 10 or 20 years ago are now becoming more common as more and more people are educated in technology, as the people who had been working in that space in these gateway markets were left behind by rising home prices and are just a general cost of living and are moving out. So in some respects, we've got these tech companies following labor, and then at the same time, labor following these tech companies, all of which revolve around the similar themes of a flight to basically affordability and opportunity. Now, in the case of Atlanta specifically, of course, we're graduating a lot of, we've got Georgia Tech, we're graduating graduates into our metropolitan area. We do have schools that bring people from other parts of the country to here as well. So we're also growing a domestic labor force in the technology space. And we have some tech incubators and this kind of thing that have partnerships with universities. That makes it attractive as well. But I think we can't disentangle this from this general cost of living pressure, which has been a theme. And that's one of the things that I was always going to trick everybody. A lot of us remember back when we were trying to stimulate home prices because they were too low, and now everybody's freaking out because they're too high. But I guess one good turn deserves another like that. But anyway, yeah, I would summarize it as that we've got a percolation of labor and skill sets to business-friendly areas, and that is, of course, what's driving those companies here as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's exciting, right? When we think of large companies like this, and I think Madeline, you also mentioned even like having one of the top airports in the city, or sorry, in the U.S. So I think that's super huge. But Madeline, I have a specific question for you as we think about commercial and retail, because I know you play a little bit of part in this too. There are companies that are deciding to having employees come back to the office, and some are doing a work from home policy or some haven't made a decision yet, and some are doing some sort of blend. And so I think about that, and I think about commercial space and how that will fare for 21 and really into 2022. So Madeline, what are your thoughts on the work from home stuff that's going on?
Yeah, I think it's really industry dependent. And if you have a commercial space in the Atlanta market, you definitely need to figure out who your tenants are and what their work from home plans are for the future, whether that's a hybrid situation or fully remote. And if it's fully remote and their lease expires in maybe 2 years, they probably won't be renewing. So that's just something to kind of think about. If you have a lot of financial companies in your building, more than likely they'll be going back into the office just due to regulatory issues. But if you have a lot of tech companies in your office, maybe they'll be downsizing their space because they're switching to a hybrid model or even a remote model.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And it is amazing to see whether it's like some large companies like Google or, Capital One, deciding not to or not making a decision, while some companies are like, we need people together, right? Which is so true. Brad, what are your thoughts to that too?
Something that I could add to that is a University of Chicago study. They had done some massive surveying to try to figure out what expectations would be in people working from home. And what they'd concluded was that about 1 out of every 5 full-time work days would be done remotely. That's to say that might be maybe the average person basically being in the office 4 days a week. Maybe some people are in there all the time and other people are home full-time. But what I thought was really interesting was the segmentation in this, which really varied depending on things like income and also gender. But I think it's part of it's going to be what the culture of a specific business wants to do, and then how labor markets respond to that. Some people are definitely going to view flexibility in their need to be in the office or working remotely as a perk. And the reality is, in some of these job segments, these people aren't being paid enough really to tolerate the kind of commute that's required for them if they're to be in the office, and based on their cost of living. We've seen that where we talked about before, maybe the Sacramento to San Francisco commute or other mega commutes that people have been pushed into in the past that are no longer necessary. I think what will also be interesting on this is to see if we end up with some kind of sort of, when it comes to housing, like a rural luxury segment. That's to say, rental communities perhaps that are built around geographically beautiful areas, so that people who are what they call in academia footloose workers, people who could work from anywhere, might choose to locate and live sort of a resort style luxury rental experience while they're working on their 1 to 2 year project with a given gig. Yeah, absolutely. I love that you said the word footloose. And originally I was like, gotta cut loose, right? But it's so true. Like, some people are just looking to find opportunities to where they can work from home more often, while some are like, hey, let's get back to the office. And it just makes me think of how things are going on across really society. And one of the things we see a lot though, guys, is the future of retail, right? Retail stores are closing left and right. And it's as much as 11,000 fashion related stores in 2020 alone, right? That's a lot. So plus theaters and entertainment have been hit super hard through COVID. So while some companies seem to be looking already to have moved from brick and mortar, some are trying to get back into and establish, because that's the base of their business. So what do you see? Do you see any sort of resurgence for these folks, whether it comes to fashion or whether it comes to theaters and entertainment, so we can really go back as we go back out and enjoy our lives after COVID? So what's your thoughts to that? And I'll leave it open. I'll start with Brad. Yeah, I mean, the area has been hit, pretty hard during COVID. So it's probably going to see some incremental improvement in the near term, but we're also looking at a longer term trend, related to just the decline in, the brick and mortar compared to what can be offered online. Arguably, you could say you're even seeing just a decline in the value of the public experience in general. But I do think that we're going to see some repurposing of some of these locations. I know there's people out there trying to target covered land plays in some instances. And one thing that we have seen in the multifamily space has been folks in retail trying to think about how they might be able to add in multifamily to their shopping center area in order to make it more attractive. You can give people that live, work, play, or maybe not work, but at least live and play experience, not just in the urban core. Here right by Phipps Plaza, we do have some communities that have just gone in the last couple of years, apartment communities and condos that are adjacent to it. But you're also going to see this further out. And in fact, that might be one way in which we will see suburban densification, which is to see, relatively denser housing now being included in some of these retail parcels to the degree zoning can get there. Nice. Absolutely. I think it is exciting to see the potential, right? Like, I hear more people going out to movies, right? More people trying to get out and about. Sometimes it just depends upon the location that you're at. How about for Chris and Madeline? Any other insight you want to share with that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not an expert on retail, but I know that Amazon was, obviously hurting retail before COVID, and then COVID was kind of the nail in the coffin. Because I was at Peachtree Battle shopping center like 3 years ago, and I was at a GNC getting some I can't remember what I was getting, but I was talking to the guy, and he said his GNC store was the top one in the country, right there at Peachtree Battle in Buckhead. And the next year he was not going to renew his lease because Amazon was just crushing it. So, I think they were already hurting. So, as far as like mixed use and changing it, I'm not really sure where that would go. But as far as like the boutique shops, I know Alpharetta just had a big development and they're doing pretty well. But like the Sunglass Huts and Peter Millar and stuff like that, where you actually want to go like try it on, I can see that stuff sticking around. But if you can get it online, I think it's going to be the end.
Yeah, it's definitely tough. And even for like movie theaters now, you can just buy all the new movies right from your house. So there's really no need to go to the movie theaters. So it's just tough.
It is tough for sure. And it's like, I think of even the malls and the transfers of how the malls are being used as storage spaces, right? It's one of those things that are just, it's happening. And it's interesting to see just from even the last 6 months, how things have shifted for us as a society, right? We have vaccines more available, more people are going out. There's less restrictions on masks, right? And if we think about where we were in January, there's a lot of wonder what that would look like. And now here we are 6 months later. And I think there's also, as we talk about all this, there's a lot of positive in our future as a group, right? And I think that's super exciting. And I want to tell you guys, all three of you, thank you so much for joining us today. Let's give them a round of applause. They did a great job sharing their information. Again, we really appreciate Brad Dillman, Madeline Harper, and Christopher Lyon. You guys did a fantastic job. Hopefully you guys took a lot of notes, but we just want to double check if there's anybody in the chat that may have a question for the group. Feel free to pop that into the chat. We'll say going once, going twice. All right, feel free to pop in your chat or question in the chat anytime. Well, if for some reason we don't get it here, we'll get an answer to you later. Again, thank you guys, Brad, Madeline, and Chris. Actually, we do have one question that just came in. This is from Will Curry. So Will has asked, can you hit on new construction and projects currently under construction? So is that something that you guys feel comfortable in talking through? Because I know sometimes it's proprietary, but I'll leave that open for you guys. So any new construction and projects currently under construction?
I could give color on what's happened with construction materials costs, which I think is one that everybody has watched pretty closely, lumber in particular, which thankfully is coming down a little bit. If you go back and look at indices related to construction materials costs and the average hourly earnings in construction, the latter tends to grow obviously at a very steady pace, whereas materials are a lot more volatile. And you can see these kind of narrative switches with builders, freaking out about labor costs when there's deflation or disinflation in materials, and then the reverse when you are experiencing something like you are today with a massive year-over-year growth rate in construction materials costs. Basically, we do expect that to slow down towards the end of this year. Again, remember, a lot of the inflation that we're seeing or the year-over-year growth that we're seeing in a lot of metrics, while it is there and growing, it also has a basis effect. It's because things have been stagnant really since the spring of last year for the most part. So when you take that in a year-over-year term, you're seeing some massive increases. The only other comment that I'd make on construction in general, because obviously it's going to vary market to market, submarket to submarket, is that we do expect it to continue to percolate out into the suburbs. Most under construction right now is still in what we call urban core submarkets, in the city. We do expect it's going to continue to percolate outward. I have yet to see anybody in multifamily figure out that the part of the issue is the multi-bedroom heavy component. Or the lack of multi-bedrooms. And that's really what's, again, if we think about it demographically, is driving people further out. Now at Cortland, we kind of focus a little bit more on larger unit sizes and communities that maybe skew with a little bit more 2 bedrooms at times or with townhome opportunities. But suffice it to say, I have not seen that switch really yet in fully attached product. Instead, what we're seeing right now is we'll see, townhome style deals that are really in the single family rental space, what they like to call horizontal apartments, picking up the implicit demand in that area.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Brad.
Yeah, and in multifamily, we're seeing a ton of new developments, in the suburbs. And honestly, if you can find entitled land for multifamily, it's like gold right now. Because a lot of the 70s deals we're selling, people are paying over replacement costs. So if you have, sophisticated builders that do everything in house, even with the lumber prices going up, the rental increases, the cap rate compression, it's all keeping up. So it's kind of a net win in the end. So guys are still building as fast as they can.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. The second question from the group, and this is from Damian Gonzalez. But first and foremost, thanks, Will, for your question. But let's now go to Damian. Damian asks, with the rental assistance program launched in Georgia, do you see that having an impact on rental rates in the next coming months or year? And again, if we don't have a response, we're like, that's okay.
So rental assistance in Georgia, I don't have any comments to that specifically, but I think what we could say is that anytime you're going to see, the artificial supporting of the ability to pay rent, you're going to see that reflected in rents. If nothing else, you're going to see it in the occupation of a unit that otherwise would not have been occupied, and therefore the consequent pressure on the supply side and therefore on the rent side. When we look at rent growth today, well, there's been an argument that because of eviction moratoria, you're looking at an artificial increase in occupancies because people who would have, not been in their unit have stayed in their unit. And as a result, you've got tighter occupancies than you otherwise would have expected, or reversing that, you have lower rent growth than you ought to have given how tight the market is. And that does appear to be something that's going to get worked out over the next 6 months. But the only comment I can make is that any intervention in the market like this will lead to its direct consequence and then have any number of other unintended consequences. But I can't speak to this policy in particular.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks, Brad. And thank you. And let's thank our panelists. Great job. Very interesting stuff. Just for time's sake, because I know we could talk about this all day, but I'm going to go ahead and pass this back over to Kevin. So Kevin, take it away.
Thank you very much, Dave. And again, Brad, Christopher, Madeline, thank you so much for your insights. Really appreciate you being with us today. And thank you, David, for moderating. Really appreciate the effort you put into it. Great opportunity, great panel discussion this afternoon. So let's move on to our next item of business. And I want to introduce an individual who's played a big role at IREM this year to give us an update on our very first in-person event that we just held since February of 2020. So I want to introduce one of our committee co-chairs and the regional property manager with Habersham Properties, Ms. Andrea Berg. Andrea, take it away.
Hello, and thank you, Kevin. Yes, our first in-person event since February of 2020 was our first annual IREM golf tournament. It was held at Echelon on May 19th. It was 18 holes, shotgun start, and it was an awesome event. From all the feedback that we got, everybody had a really good time, and it was just fun, fellowship, and a lot of friendly golf. I want to shout out to our gold sponsors, RPM CF Real Estate Services. We had silver sponsors who were Cortland and Greystar, and our bronze sponsors were Gibson Landscape Services and Integral Property Management. We also had sponsors for our food, for tea boxes, and flag sponsors too. And for our first annual golf tournament, it was a sold out event, which was awesome. I also want to take a moment to give special thanks to Joshua Page of the Page Company for his awesome committee leadership. He did a great job in helping the program committee get this going. He did so much work. He is such an awesome, and we can't wait until next year. In case anybody was wondering, first place was Adam Cochran's group with Brinson and Surlock. Second place was Christopher Lyon, who's on here today. His team had Christopher Averett and Jeremy Borak, along with Brian Love. And third place was Todd Halverson, Adam Briley, and Bassinger Widgen. I think I got those names pretty messed up. Our longest drive went to Lacey Agnew, and our closest to the pin was James Hamrick. This is not an event that you have to be a great golfer to take home cash prizes, because we also awarded for the 7th, the 15th, and the last place teams. And so sponsorships are available right now at the same rate. Be on the lookout for an email about the tournament because we are already planning for next year. And lastly, I would like to say that we did so well that the funds that we raised were able to help us with a $10,000 donation to it's the IRM sponsorships. It's the IRM Foundation.
IRM Foundation.
Yes, so we donated $10,000 to the IRM Foundation, which was awesome. Plus, we gave money to the Dorothy Long first year member scholarship. All right, so that's it for me. Drew, are you ready? Because now an announcement from Drew, and this is how it is written to me, okay? Are you ready? Drew Williams, an IRM Next Gen CPM leader. Drew Williams with his CAM, his ARM, he's a CPM candidate that I think just finished all of his classes. Drew is also the client service manager at RPM. Drew, take it away.
Wow, Andrea, that is quite the introduction. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm blushing. Team, I apologize for my technical difficulties yesterday. What a perfect time, or earlier, what a perfect time for your microphone and speaker to go out. Do want to give a quick shout out to David Sayers. He was a guest recently on the IRM podcast From the Front Lines, where he talked about talent management. So you guys be sure to check that out on Spotify and iTunes. The man is quite the wordsmith, to say the least. So now I think it's time to have a little bit of fun. I'm going to be responsible for giving away some prizes via a little survey. So you guys get your fingers ready, get your chat box open. As we announced a little bit earlier, we have a Kate Spade bag valued at $350. That's what we're going to be giving away for the first question. Are y'all ready? The first person to pop it in the chat box. When is the next in-person event? Is the lucky winner of a Kate Spade bag valued at $350, courtesy of Purse Vaults. Ding, 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 ding. Diane Dameron, congratulations. You are today's winner. It's old Speedy Diane. We'll be sure to connect with you, Diane, on how we can get that prize over to you. Definitely be sure to check us out on the 25th, guys. It's for an absolutely amazing organization called Truly Living Well. They're a 501(c) nonprofit educational center for natural urban agriculture. They grow food, they connect people, and build equitable and sustainable food communities. So it kicks off at 9 a.m. Get down there, get your hands dirty, compost some stuff, process produce, cultivate beds. It's going to be a good time to kind of give back to the community. All right, for the next question, this is the winner of the London Fog travel bag. First person to pop the answer in the chat box. Y'all ready? When is the Midas Touch Industry Partner Program? Again, first person to pop the date in the chat is the lucky winner of the London Fog travel bag. Excited, guys, because this is going to be an in-person event held with our good friends Ansley Golf Club, where all of our industry partners to kind of show up and exercise and promote their services. We have a special guest, Mike Gomez. He's going to talk about customer experience versus customer service. Mike actually is a former Disney employee, so really excited to hear about his experiences there. All right, we got a couple of answers, don't have the correct answer just yet. So let's keep going, guys. Somebody was pretty close. Jonathan Kern, you almost had it right on the head. It is in August, if I'm allowed to say that. Probably not, but whatever. It is what it is.
If you'll say it was in August, I'll say it's on oh, here we go.
Bam, 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 bam. Kevin Owens. He may be exempt from winning the London.
Give that to somebody else. Give that to somebody else. But just wanted people to know when it was.
Diane Dameron won again.
Woo.
Diane
Joseph
is on it
Perlman.
today. Looks like Joseph Perlman came in third on that. So I'll digress to Andrea and Deborah on how they want to handle that. Guys, I know we're running a little over on time. Two quick things I wanted to also share with y'all. Please mark your calendars for November the 13th. It is our 50th anniversary. IREM Georgia is hosting its Golden Gala at the Egyptian Ballroom at the Fox Theater in Midtown Atlanta at 7 o'clock. From about 7 to 7:45, we're going to have a fantastic cocktail hour with our silent auction. Then the grand doors open from 7:45 to 8:30. We'll be hosting our awards banquet and fabulous sit-down dinner. And then at 8:30, the band hits the stage and it's time to party. So a night of dining and donating and dancing, and it's going to be a fantastic time. $100 per person, $180 for couples. We've got a whole bunch of different sponsorship levels to get you a lot of really cool perks to the event. It's going to sell out. We only have 250 spots to fill. So be sure when you see that registration link, come out and get registered for that. It's going to be the event of all events. Lastly, guys, keep an eye out for events, socials, future opportunities for engagement on the IREM website. They currently have a fantastic subscription program for all of their webinars. You're constantly getting these emails about all the different webinars and you're seeing the price and you're like, how can I make this add up? Look into that subscription program because you can really get the best bang for your buck. Annual subscriptions are $199 a year, or you can break it down even monthly for $49 a month. And with that, I believe I'm going to turn it back over to IREM Georgia's chapter president, Kevin Owens.
Thank you very much, Drew. Really appreciate that. Appreciate everything you and the rest of the program committee are doing this year to make these fun events and interesting for everybody. Look forward to what's happening the rest of the year as well. Before we close out, I wanted to let everybody know, if you haven't noticed on the emails blast that Deborah has sent out recently, Yardi has provided information on all the real estate markets. So please take a look at that. It will have some great information for you to peruse and kind of look at, and based on the conversation we've had today, I think it would be interesting for you to see. Those reports will also be on our website. So again, another great reason to go to the IREM Georgia website. It's a great place to see everything, anything related to real estate, get all your educational needs met, find out when events are, and get great information like this as well.